A pandemic of violence floods the streets of major cities as cases of the media-dubbed murder virus, MV20, soar, causing those infected to go on killing sprees. Caught in the middle, police detective Angela Miller finds her only trustworthy ally in the self-proclaimed psychic PI, Gerald Henry. As the two try to navigate the violence, they are drawn into New Age guru Abramelin Harvest's plot to heal the planet. Harvest's missive:
the world is sick, and humanity is the infection.
The cure: murder. From the twisted mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires and Shadowplay Book 1, Kim and Jesse, comes his most vicious novel yet, Murder Virus. Available where books are sold.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Presents Sharing in Session, a weekly Yellowjackets discussion. I'm Sean.
And I'm Missy.
And we both just rewatched this week's episode number 4, and we were talking about it, and then I realized we should be recording. So we'll try to recreate a little bit of what we were just talking about, because I think it's pertinent before we get into the full discussion on what happened in the episode. But Missy, how did you feel the first time you watched episode 4, which you watched Thursday at midnight, right? So just to reiterate for listeners, these do drop like at 12:01 on Thursday night. So how did you feel about it?
I think this season has a really different rhythm than the first season. Because when I watched it, the last episode, I felt like it was kind of anticlimactic, and then thought about it and realized, no, things happened. And when I watched it again, it doesn't feel that way at all. And I'm noticing that with season 2, it seems like on first watch, except for the second episode, Edible Complex, where the cannibalism was confirmed. But all the other episodes, you kind of walk away. I've kind of walked away from them going, that was anticlimactic, and like it doesn't feel like it's moving. And then when I watch it again, it kind of blows my mind. And there's a whole shit ton of things to unpack and to talk about.
Yes.
And that's, I mean, the first time I'm watching it, it's just, okay, what's going to happen next? And did I guess this or that or whatever? And then the second time I watch it is when I find all the little nuances that are kind of fucking brilliant that I didn't notice the first time.
Agreed. 100%. I finished my viewing Friday night, and I was immediately like, well, nothing fucking happened. And Kirsten's like, dude, how could you totally say that? Like, Javi showed back up, I'm like, okay, well, so I was just telling Missy moments before we started recording, my thing is like, it doesn't bother me, because I'm going to watch it a second time. I'm going to dig in. I'm fine with the slower pacing, because I realize it's trying to reflect for us the isolation of the wilderness to some degree, and also the isolation that they're kind of feeling as they're spread thin, because season 1 brings all of them together again, Nat and Misty and Shauna and Ty, and now they're all isolated from one another. Misty's trying to get a hold of him, can't. Ty is off, now like really on an adventure by herself, and so I think it's trying to reflect that, and so it's doing a good job. I get it. You get it. I think a lot of people will get it. Probably anybody listening to this gets it. However, the general public, I don't know that they get it, and it just worries me that people are going to be fickle and be like, oh yeah, well, another slow episode where nothing happens. Fuck this show. I mean, I just, it just happens so much. I mean, I always go back to Twin Peaks. It's like, why am I still watching this? And I'm not me saying this, but when it originally aired, everybody just jumped ship as soon as they reveal the killer, which, or like I always think about being at Cinespia at the Hollywood Forever Cemetery watching Blue Velvet, and like the fucking people in front of us, one of them's like, yeah, wake me up if somebody gets fucking killed, and like lay down, like trying to go to sleep. I was just like, is this the general public? Like, are you fucking kidding me? So just because you're interested enough to watch something that's, maybe progressive or subversive or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean you'll get it. And a lot of shows have a history of like striking hot at the beginning and then just people just leave in droves when they get frustrated. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen. Listeners, if anybody in your life at work, over the water cooler, on Fridays or Mondays or whatever, anybody that's like, fuck this show, please reiterate to them, like, maybe go back and watch it a second time, because there's stuff happening. And I think the creators know this, and I think we've got something big coming. I just don't know when. So
Right.
Let's talk about what blew our minds, because I got two big ones and they're subtle as fuck, but you go ahead. So what blew your mind, Missy?
Well, one of the scene with Natalie and Lisa, from the Purple People cult. After they visit her family, and Natalie has liberated her goldfish.
Amazing scene.
This is probably my favorite scene in the episode. And she's talking to Lisa, and she's afraid she's gonna kill her fish, and they kind of brush on that. Lisa has been suicidal in the past, and that when Lisa first met Nat, she was about to commit suicide, and she asked her, "Do you still want to kill yourself?" And you see Natalie kind of think about it for a minute, and she just kind of smiles and says, "No, not today." And like that really resonated for me, and that's something that's going to stay with me, and that I will try to remind myself of, that even on the days that suck, not today.
Well, and a really big thing about that scene, Lisa's got a glass of water. There's a pitcher of water with the goldfish in it. That bartender's getting a good tip for that. And Nat has, I don't know if it's a glass of water or a beer, but next to it is a shot of a brown liquor, probably whiskey, right? And
probably
when she says not today, she pushes the shot away. So
I noticed that.
I think, and then you could point to other things like the conversation with Lisa's mother, who's the second biggest cunt in this episode. We'll get to the first biggest cunt in a while. But I think the purple people, sunshine honey people, I think it's starting to work. I think Nat is actually starting to see this. And like Kirsten said, the flashback of their young Nat and Lottie in the tub, where like Nat is, freezing from submerging her face, and then she's in the hot water.
Right.
They bring Lottie in, she's like, put her in the tub, and then they have this moment where like Lottie's like, loser, and then Nat's like, oh, you coming at me, bitch, or whatever, and they're joking around. It's camaraderie, and Kirsten's like, I'm starting to see. She's like, I didn't understand what was between these two in the present. Like, why is Nat still there? But there's a friendship. There's like something there, and I think we're gonna see more of that and how it plays out in the future or in the present. But for the most part, that scene tells me that I think she's starting to get something out of what Lottie's retreat or whatever it is does for people.
Maybe. I mean, I thought it was, I think she's just there gathering information.
Could be. I think she is doing that, but is it working regardless of whether she realizes it's working? I don't think she's going to drink the Kool-Aid, but something's happening. Like it's helping her.
I think what it is all right. When she first meets Lisa, she stabs her in the face with a fork.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have that scene where Lottie at her cult trying to put them together to have like a, I don't know, mediation or
Yeah.
that
Sharing.
kind of thing. Right, sharing. And she gives her the fork and tells her if what you need to do is hurt Natalie, then you can. Um, and Natalie kind of adjusts her stance and her shoulders and locks eyes with her, like, "Come on, bring it."
Mm-hmm.
And then Lisa drops the fork and she says, "I forgive you," and she hugs her.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only thing she probably could have done that Nat would not have expected and not known how to deal with. And it's that whole forgiveness thing. Like, I think Natalie is kind of trying to make it up to her by trying to help her think for herself.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I don't think it's, I mean, it maybe she's inadvertently getting something from being there, but like when Lisa hugs her, she goes completely stiff and she has
Yes.
that look of panic, which I know that look because unless I don't like to be touched unless it's somebody that I'm comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I make that face. um, and I think it's that act of kindness both confused her and kind of made Nat want to look out for her.
Yeah, okay. Definitely. I mean, it when that scene occurs earlier on where Lottie's getting dressed and then Nat comes in, she's like, oh, I was hoping to use those keys. I was gonna go with Lisa. I thought for sure she was just gonna take the car and fucking leave. Like I totally thought she was playing her, and she wasn't. So when it then cuts to them in the car, I was like, oh, I did not see that coming. And notice they never fulfill their responsibility. They never end up at the farmer's market. So
Right.
they end up at a bar, but so I don't know. I will say though, I mean, you're right, and let me reiterate, and kind of curtail what I said. I don't think she's going to swallow the Kool-Aid, but here's the bigger picture here, and this is the thing that really blew my mind about this episode, and I almost missed. So Lottie's whole everything positioning is they're doing a really interesting job with it because so the interaction with Lisa and Nat in the car really was well written and very intentful because they're doing it so you really don't know if Lottie is doing something culty or if it's legitimately just altruistic. And so it's like, oh, Nat's like, oh, you're not allowed to leave. No, we're allowed to leave. And they have that conversation, and you come away from that conversation initially thinking like, okay, I mean, it sounds like Nat's trying to find this thing that's not there. But then when they're walking up to the house, she's like, oh, you're not supposed to see your family. Well, it's not that we're not supposed to, but Lottie doesn't think it's a good idea because our anchors are at the compound. So that's a little culty, right? So that's like, oh.
That's very culty.
But then at the same time, you're like, okay, so it's like they give you something that points one way, then they give you something that points the opposite way. So it's zero sum. You can't decide. So that's smart. Now, she goes to the psychiatrist, and first she said, the first thing that caught my eye about this scene was she says, the last time I haven't had these visions in decades, and the last time I did, I wrote it exactly. I think it was very intentionally. She says, the last time it was became something different. So I feel like the writing there is very intentional because the last time it was right. So what is it? Because you would think with the vision, she would say the last time they became something different. She doesn't. She says it was the is intentional because it kind of breaks the rhythm of what she's saying and then became something different. So what became something different? So I think Lottie's afraid of the visions. However, she has a replica to some degree of the fucking altar from the woods on the compound because we later see her go there, cut her hand, offer blood, and say, please, can this just be enough? This goes back to her and Travis when Travis dies, where he's going to try and give it just enough to talk to it. And Evil Dead Laura Lee comes out of the shadows and basically, as he then, dies, basically announcing like, no, I want him, he's mine. So there is some kind of a force that she's trying to appease with this blood, right? But then the thing that really blew my fucking mind, and it's so obvious, the scene at the shrink starts and she's like, so what happened to Dr. whatever his name is? Oh, it was a unscheduled absence or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And the scene just goes around. And then later as she's talking about the visions, the shrink is like, well, I implore you, I think you should try and like listen to what they're saying. And Lottie says, what? But they're not real. Why would the shrink say that? Well, why is her regular shrink suddenly just not there? Because I think she's an agent for something or someone else. They've infiltrated her shrink and they're trying to push her along a path. But who? This is the thing that's driving me fucking nuts. Is there a larger organization? Is there a cult and she tried to take an aspect of it, crack it off and make it something altruistic with this weird purple people, retreat, and now it's calling her back. Like, we're on the cusp of something that's really going to blow our minds, and they're fucking toying with us, and you really have to give it time to breathe and watch it multiple times for some of this shit to come out. But the thing with the shrink, it could be wrong. I was wrong about Javi not coming back, right? But I mean, it seems obvious that she is not actually a shrink. She's been planted there in order to push Lottie further into the fucking visions. So I don't know. Thoughts? Am I nuts?
Speaking of you were just speaking of intentional language, like the wording of. Now, get this. The thing with the blood. Can this just be enough? That is exactly the same wording. The scene with Shauna and the daughter, and Shauna's telling her the truth.
Oh my
and then
God.
And she says, maybe someday I'll be able to get into this with you, but for now, can this just be enough?
Holy shit.
I mean, why would they use exactly the same wording unless it's like it's triggering something?
It's extremely, like you just pointed out, it's extremely intentional.
I would not have thought of this if you had not
said
what you said. Yeah, it was when you said that talking about Lottie, I'm like, oh shit.
So for listeners, we have a Horror Vision Facebook discussion group. It's private, but you can ask to join and we'll accept you unless you're like, I don't know, some lunatic. But or even then probably. But so our friend Amy, so Missy, you posted about Yellowjackets before, either right before or right after you watched the new episode. And our friend Amy's like, it's my favorite show, but I can't help but be worried because of having sat through Lost that they're leading us down a path that they're ultimately not going to be able to deliver. And my response was, I think post Lost, anybody doing a puzzle box show maps that shit out all the way through. Right. And this intentional writing in the script, easily fucking missed. But when you hone in on it, you see it. This is what ensures to me that the creators of this show know what the fuck they're doing, and they're not going to come to a point. Going. Yeah, they're not going to come to a point and be like, wow, okay, well, is it point A, point B, point C? Where do we go with this now? They know where they're going. And that really gives me, it's going to sound ridiculous, but like the same thing with people, when you get hurt, you have armor, you put up shields with people sometimes, right? You put up walls because I've been hurt before. it's kind of the same with these kind of shows when you're into them, and like having shit canceled or disappear, or ultimately like Lost be unsatisfying, and just with the moment when you realize like, oh, they really didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And I don't hate Lost. I'd never watch it again. Whatever. I mean, I'd probably give it a C plus as an overall experience. But the point being, I don't ever want to go through that with the show again. Like if I
Right.
sink in, I want to know they know where they're going, because it's heartbreaking when you're like, oh man, come on, I invested all. So anyway, whatever. But yeah, dude, and that scene with Shauna and Callie,
I
there
was
is
thinking
no,
about what you said.
dude, when she's like no bars, I'm like, she's gonna fucking, is she gonna fucking kill her? Like, holy shit.
Only if I think, I mean, again, that was very intentional. I
Yes.
think it could have gone either way.
Yeah.
After they have their conversation and Callie promises, Shauna's like, okay. And it's like, she's going to trust her for now and see how it goes, I think. But
Yeah.
I mean, but when she was driving her, as soon as she picked her up in the car, like she's going to scare the shit out of her.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't go well, I think Sean's right. And then they're driving out to the, when she parks, it's like, yeah, I mean, I figured it was 50-50. I mean, she loves her daughter, and I don't think she'd hurt her unless she had to. But if it came down to like protecting her and her team, I think she probably would.
I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe they, I know they wrote it that way, so we would think that, right? But
Right.
whether or not the character would do that, I don't know. Would she ultimately say my secret, the Yellowjacket secret, is more important than my daughter's life? I don't know. I do feel, and I, again, our friend Amy really put, like, she's like, I love Shauna because of the savagery that lurks beneath her domesticated suburban persona. And it's so well said, the savagery, it's fucking there. And also like just the conversation she had with Callie where she's like, yeah, I killed him. And then like, well, he's black. No, that's a lie too. Like she's very pragmatic. She's like, no, I said I wasn't going to tell a lie, so I'm not going to tell a lie. And you see her
Right.
working through it.
Working through it.
There's always shit going on, multiple layers in her head. So I don't know, man.
I just love when she'd answer the question and be like, no, yeah, kinda. It's kinda
Yeah.
your dad's fault, but not really.
And I like that it brings about, and so we don't know what Callie's intentions are. Okay, so she's drinking in a park with a friend. So is that a lie because she's going to bars with a friend with a fake ID, or is she meeting that cop guy
That cop.
and talking? We don't know, right?
She was meeting him.
That was my first assumption, but then I was like, well, if she's going out and drinking, she's not going to tell her parents I'm going to. Although, maybe, you know what? At this point, maybe she would. I don't know, but she's vague about it, so we don't know. So is she just okay? I'm going to dig in and I'm going to be a mole and research it, like, or is she really just drunk the Kool-Aid, to reuse a metaphor from earlier, and like she's now like, no, my parents are cool. I'm part of it. It reminds me a lot. I know you haven't seen Ozark, and it's not really a spoiler. Fantastic fucking show. But there's an element of that show where it's like the parents are very almost from the beginning, well, from the first season, they tell their kids everything. So they're like, we're laundering money. Like their children are 100%. They're not just like passive accomplices. They're part
involved.
of, they're involved.
Okay.
And it just becomes a family dynamic. Like at first they try and like push against that and like protect them to some degree, but it's like, no, we can't. So whatever. I mean, they're part of the family. There's a family business. Let's do it.
I don't know if that is the case. So going back to the family thing, like it almost seemed like the fact that they were being honest with each other made Callie bond with them.
Yeah, that's
Like,
what it looks like on
real.
the surface. It's just, I just don't know if I buy it, but that's what it looks like.
Right. I guess it could. Yeah. I mean, she does seem like she could be just as manipulative as Shauna if she wanted to. So she could be playing them. Um, so regarding Walter and Misty, do you think is he genuine or is she getting played?
I literally don't know. I still, more of me, 60% of me thinks this is deep cover for Walter, right? But I don't know. I honestly, and I'm glad I don't know, because it's another thing.
Right.
It's another example. They do such a good job with the script, because they're the same thing with Lottie, the same thing with Shauna and Kent. Like, you just don't know. They give you things that point one way, but then they also give you the same amount of things that point the other way. So it's a zero sum. You cannot make, you can guess, but you can't make an educated decision. There's no way somebody can say, I know this for a fact because.
Okay, right. I mean, and regarding Walter and Misty, like, I love every minute of it, whether I know or not. I don't want to know. That's the fun part. I tend to agree with you. I think 60% of him right now is still investigating, but I think he also is having a lot of fun with her. He wanted to meet her, and I just wonder if are they really that alike, or is all of it just a really good masquerade?
So is the Phantom of the Opera from the first season, the repeated Phantom of the Opera, needle drops, right? Is that in some way telling us that he's wearing a mask, that she's being played? I don't know. It's very possible.
He was wearing a mask though in their
good call.
He's wearing the gold mask.
Yeah, he's wearing a gold mask.
Just puts it under her eyes.
That's really interesting.
I didn't notice that until you just said this about the Phantom of the Opera.
The thing that keeps me thinking he's genuine is the moment where, and not a lot of needle drops, which is fine. However, I love that they use Sparks' Angst in My Pants. I was like, oh my God, this is so fucking perfect. I
don't know that song.
It's Sparks they're fantastic.
I thought maybe it was from a musical or something.
No,
I don't know what they were singing earlier either about Argentina, but I think that was a musical too.
That's a musical. Sparks is, I think I don't know. I think that the Argentina thing is from that Frida or whatever, the musical about the woman from Argentina. But Sparks is these two brothers from California. They've been recording albums since the 70s. They invented the style of rock, like opera. Well, I don't know if they invented it. I feel like they did. Bohemian Rhapsody, that was inspired by Sparks. Like, basically Queen heard Sparks and was like, let's do that.
I hate Bohemian Rhapsody.
I'm not a big Queen fan, but so anyway, so Sparks, but so the thing that keeps me wondering if he's genuine, if Walter's genuine, was that scene where they're both laying in bed with their whatever I could try to see what they were both. It's two different things, but it's like the same app or something, whatever they're going to sleep listening to.
I couldn't see it either.
But then they sit up, and obviously with the split screen, like they're attracted to one another. They're thinking, should I go knock on the door? They don't, right? So that moment is a genuine moment, unless he's thinking, should I go do this because it'll get me closer? And she's thinking you know what I mean? Like, we don't know.
But they might both be thinking that, but I think that I think they're both into each other too.
Yeah.
It's like they're exactly the same kind of weird.
Yeah, totally.
As far as genuine, like when the hotel manager asked if they want one room or two, like she says no. He said yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Just one room, and and then she starts stammering over him, and he's like, okay, maybe, and she's like, no, 2 rooms.
Yeah.
I think that was real.
Like, Kirsten's like, what the hell kind of, because it's not a motel, right? They go in and there's like a basket with like jellies and all this stuff, right? So like, it's a bed and breakfast, and I think he had even said there's a bed and breakfast nearby. So it's a really nice place.
He said that.
But they're checking in under assumed names. Like usually that's like at a fucking motel, like a 4-hour flop house.
Well, I'm sure it's relevant, but who is Lady Malawan?
I meant to look it up. I'm sure it's from a musical. It's
I
gotta
did
be, right?
too, and it's
Um,
got to be something from a musical. And I'm assuming his John Lang may also be from a musical
yeah,
then too,
yeah.
because
Um,
she might even be saying it in like they could be from the same musical. Who knows?
so I'd like to talk about Thaisa for a minute because,
Okay,
and something actually just dawned on me right now that just blew my mind. I already had one
okay,
thing with her, and the thing that initially blew my mind with her, I didn't get it the first viewing, and the second viewing I got it. When we see her before the credits, so it starts with her and Van, and it's like the tree, right? And Van's like, "No, you found another tree," and I'm like, "Oh, they're
mm-hmm.
mapping them. Okay, that's cool." And then she's like, "If you just go to Lottie," she's like, "No, it's none of her business. I'm going to sleep." Then it cuts to present day, and she takes the keys out from under. I didn't. She is in. Um, I forget the woman's name. The woman Misty killed in the first season. Ty is in her fucking house. She
Oh,
breaks into her fucking
Jessica.
house. Yes, Jessica. She breaks into her fucking house at the beginning of the episode,
How
but
do you
not
know it's her
Ty.
house?
Because so the first thing that, because
I
you're
know the
focused,
scene,
you're
but
focused at first on the fact that they're visually showing you Thaisa is watching her passenger, do things, right? So that's really what grabs you about the scene at first. And you gloss over the
right.
fact that what she's actually doing. She lifts a mat and there's keys under the mat, right? So right away I was like, that's weird. And then she goes in and they show a fucking picture. Wherever she goes, there's pictures on the wall, and it's Jessica. She's going through the
Oh,
file. She steals the file that she hired Jessica to make on the Yellowjackets. And that's where, when she opens it in the car later, you see Van's, while you were streaming. You don't know what you're looking at first. But so she's in her fucking house. That blew my mind.
I didn't catch that. I thought she was like, I saw
In her
the thing with the
office.
key. Yeah, I thought she was at like because Simone moved out and everything. I
Yeah,
thought she
yeah.
was at like
That's what I thought at first too. But no, she's in Jessica's fucking apartment or house or office or whatever,
oh,
which is super fucking weird.
so that's how her other knows where to go.
That's how her other knows where to go. Because she gets that file,
Okay,
probably first of all, so nobody, because okay, at some point somebody's gonna, if Jessica's dead, somebody's gonna have to go through, even if it's ruled not a homicide because Misty knew what she was doing when she poisoned her with the fentanyl. Somebody's going to go through her stuff and then those files. So she goes to get the files, and she also then gets Van's address. So so that totally blew my mind because and she also, like, when that scene ends, she comes to in the car and the car is stopped because she's driven until the tank went empty.
right.
So that's fucked up. Like, the other was in charge that fucking long, and then
That long.
either it lapsed or it didn't know what to do when there was no gas, and then we're like, okay, I'll let her deal with this and put it back to Thaisa.
Let her deal with it. Well, and that brings up, and I know I mentioned it like in a text during the week, but now watching it again right beforehand, and now I'm really pretty convinced. The whole, I think Ty's other did not like Simone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I don't know why, and very intentionally wants to put her and Van back together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that, maybe not necessarily as a couple, but wants them working together for
Mm-hmm.
some reason. And it tried to knock off the wife to get rid of her. I watched I watched episodes 3 and 4 right before, and that's because I wanted to watch the scene in the mirror again with Ty's other
Mm-hmm.
in episode 3. She definitely did say go to her.
Okay.
I did know, yeah, she definitely said go to her. And this also goes back to the Phantom of the Opera mask that you were talking about, because she makes
Mm-hmm.
the mask with her hands, signifying that she wants her to find Van. Um, and then very intentionally checked her out for God knows how long then,
Mm-hmm.
until she ran out of gas. She's been doing all these things. So how long has she been?
Yeah.
Has the other been driving? Like days? I didn't. I didn't see where the while you were streaming video store was.
I didn't either. And I don't, they don't really give you a clear idea because I keep
I'm
thinking
not
that,
even sure where they are.
no,
Now
I
that I
keep
think about it.
thinking that the things look like the West Coast or NorCal or Portland to me, but no, it's all upstate New York. So, and I'm not as familiar with upstate New York other than knowing that upstate New York bears no resemblance to New York, right? Like it's totally different.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
so I mean, it is like wilderness and weird, you know, just all of this would fit. It just, I
Okay.
don't know. But something about while you were streaming just totally struck me as very like Portland or whatever, but that's not where they
Okay.
are. And she couldn't have driven that long, even if it's a hybrid. And you know, like she'd either have to charge or she'd run out of gas within a day.
So then
she
she was checked out for maybe a day or two.
well, like now, like I'm gonna guess a couple hours, like probably like 5 hours,
Okay.
something like that. Which is interesting though, because so there's still the question we've had all along: why now? So how we don't know how long Ty and Simone were together, but it's not only that the other doesn't like her, it's so Ty would not have been able to be the other for very long, other than in the middle of the night or whatever, you know, with Simone in the house and the kid, because it, you know, it like if she's walking around for 5 hours as the other, Simone's going to be like, what the fuck is going on? So I
The
think
other
there's
needs her to be
something
independent.
exactly. So there's something coming that the other then is like, I got to get rid of this bitch. So she kills Simone, or she doesn't kill her, but you know what I mean.
No, she might have.
Well, she might
She's
have
not okay
ultimately,
yet.
but then also like the other also then while she's in the hospital bed draws a symbol on her hand, and Ty very worriedly cleans it off.
Rubs it
So
off.
she's aware to some degree what's going on. She just doesn't want to admit it or whatever. But it's the same thing with Lottie. Why now all of a sudden Lottie seems like she may, even though we all thought, and it still could be, but even though we all thought she had some evil cult and was operating in the shadows, manipulating them, that might not be the case. But what is coming and who's orchestrating it and who, like, so something is going on. And that I think is what's really, I think that's what we're going to get. I hope it's not the end of the season that opens us up to a bigger world. I hope it happens sooner, but whatever, but something's coming.
Oh yeah, for sure. I I I think the subtle shift in rhythm is kind of the way slow burn horror movies work. And then when we do get to the big shit,
Yes.
they're just gonna it's just gonna knock you on your ass.
Yep.
Which is kind of, you know, when we did get to the end of episode 2, it hit extra hard.
Yeah.
And then it was just shot so beautiful. The cinematography on this show is fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. Oh, the fucking scene with
that
the moose.
Scene with the moose.
Oh God,
yes,
gorgeous.
Gorgeous. Where you can see both underwater and above at the same time, and the whole fucking moose and just the depth of just blue.
Oh, unreal.
So cool. I have no idea how they filmed that. It's fucking gorgeous.
Also, speaking of the moose and the competition between Lottie and Nat that leads us there. So going back to the biggest cunt in the episode, Mari, by far, and like believes Lottie.
I'm calling her for the Deadpool. Mari's next to die.
So now we know. To the listeners, it's fun to just, you know, issue conjecture and whatever. I could be totally wrong.
And then be wrong.
But so we talked previously last week or the week before about, okay, so is it, you said I think it's Mari who at the very beginning of the season 1 in the first episode is running, and you hear the weird calls that the girls are making, and then she falls in the pit with
the pit girl.
So we have our factions at clear as day in this episode, right? It's like Lottie this or fuck that, right? So it's Coach, Ty, Nat, totally bullshit on Lottie. And then you get the other, like Van, Misty, and Mari, especially, extremely dialed in. Mari is the one that stole the bear meat. And when that comes out, everybody's going to be like, you better fucking run, bitch, because now we're going to eat you. That's, I think, the catalyst. I think that's going to be the catalyst for that first scene in the show.
Oh, that's awesome.
I just feel like
that would be so cool.
Yeah, right. And she's just such a bitch that like even Lottie doesn't want like some of the like the way she's so like, oh, Lottie, she doesn't need the gun, and like the look that Lottie gives, which Lottie wouldn't have known what to do with the gun anyway, but like Lottie's afraid of what they're saying that she's capable of doing because she doesn't necessarily understand it, and that plays nicely against present day Lottie being afraid of what's happening and the visions and whatnot. So I don't know, but dude, fucking Mari, goddamn, let's get rid of that bitch. Fuck.
Yes, please. It's like we got rid of Jackie, and then another head sprouted.
Yeah, I'd rather have Jackie back. Well, maybe not, but goddamn. Oh.
I mean, I hated Jackie too, but she irritated me. I mean, at least she had reasons for being a bitch.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, Mari needs to go. And then you've got, I find it interesting, and I'm curious to see how it plays out. Travis is in the middle.
He's totally in the middle.
He's totally in the middle because he's like, he believes Lottie, but he also believes in Nat. And
well, he's going to believe less in Nat and more in Lottie now that he realized Nat totally lied to him about Javi.
That's true.
Was right.
That's true.
Because there is he gives her a look as he's hugging Javi, and she shrinks into the shadows.
And I mean, I know why she did it.
Of course.
She was trying to relieve his pain, and she didn't think there was any way Javi could still be alive. Which, I mean, that we had thought that he was going to get like taken by the other people, but the people who carved the trees.
And I mean, now I'm back to thinking that because, so first of all, right before they find him in this episode, Van notices there's a spot where you can see grass and that the snow is melting. And she's like, that's weird. It's like, why is this melting? It's warm. So I don't know if that means he had a fire. I don't know if that means he was sleeping on it. It was his body heat, or like, is there, I literally, I don't know. I have absolutely no idea what that means. And he obviously doesn't know who they are or where he is, right? Like the look on his face, Javi's not there. So we've got another person with another, or potentially another passenger.
That's interesting.
That's really interesting. Possibly Lottie and Javi all have this now.
Well, I've never thought that Lottie had a passenger. I think Lottie has schizophrenia, and she also has like some kind of clairvoyance that are constantly in war with each other.
Yes, so I guess that's a good point. It's not that she is a passenger, but she's definitely afraid of whatever this is talking. Yes. So there's something she communes with, and it takes that form, and then maybe in the other two it takes a different form. Is it all the same thing? Like this goes back to how does it tie into them? And then the man with no eyes, right? When Lottie is looking, I believe what inspires her in present day to go out and cut her hand to that again. Why does she have an altar?
that looks like
The one from the woods, right?
yeah.
But the thing that inspires her to do that, I believe, is she's looking at the days, like so the people at the retreat must give her little messages like, thanks so much. I'm thankful. Like, what are you thankful for? Missives or
Oh yeah,
whatever.
they're daily, yeah, like daily gratitude.
And what does she keep seeing? The man with no
The
eyes.
queen with no eyes.
Well, or
It
yeah,
was a
but
queen,
so
right?
it's okay.
Wasn't it
So
the Queen of Hearts?
I don't remember what suit or figure, but I just know um it was a playing card and the eyes were scratched out, which immediately is like the
I
man,
think it's one of the queens.
Okay. So is she the queen with no? And also, right before she sees it the second time, the message is, "I'm thankful for my friends," and then she flips it, and then it's that card again, which is probably not actually really there. She's seeing it, right? It's a vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she's definitely afraid of the visions, but I mean, I don't think she has something in her. I think, in regards to you were talking about it, like I think the it she communicates with is like a god or like some kind of forest god, or maybe if they
Death.
are doing like the Roman Bacchus thing, like I think in regards to her, the it is some kind of deity or presence that she is connecting with.
Yeah.
With Ty, that I mean, her other is like a split personality. It's something in her. And now I
But
don't
is
know
it
about Hobby.
natural? Is it natural? Like, i.e., like, is it a textbook case of split personality schizophrenia, or is there literally some malign influence that at some point, like almost like a parasitic thing, where it's not born
Okay.
of her, it's something that got into her because of what, did her grandma have it passed to her? Are we looking at like
Right.
death, and the queen with no eyes would need soldiers, and so then here's a soldier, and it's funny that the Ty's pastor wants her to go find Van when Van was clearly signed on to the Lottie cult, right? We saw her at the end of the first season, her and Misty flanking Lottie as she offers the bear heart to the altar. And it isn't that, you're right. It is a deity or something. So she doesn't have a pastor, but there are moments like in Doomcoming, or the scene where she speaks in French, where she doesn't seem to be standard Lottie. Like she seems in Doomcoming, she seems, now it could just be the mushrooms, but she seems like it's a different personality. Like it just seems like, something, we're not going to be hungry much longer. So it could just be her riding the high of having these visions and tapping into this for the first time. And then she's starting to find she doesn't like it. Oh, it's fascinating.
Well, and I just had the thought that, all right, what you said about Chavi being checked out and that he could have one too. Going back to, you had mentioned that you wondered if Javi is Adam, and we're pretty convinced that he was. Why didn't he have any paintings of Shauna as a kid? Maybe Adam doesn't know he was Javi because Adam is the other.
Oh, that's
if he had one.
That's interesting.
I didn't think of that till now, and I mean, it's probably wrong, but it was just a thought.
I feel like the next episode, because of where we are in the story with Hobby and Van and present day, I think it'll be a bigger episode as far as like, I think it'll appease more people because they have to give us something about, I mean, I guess the whole episode, they could be asking him frustrating questions and him just like not answering. But even if that's the case, they're going to go back to that spot. Like, I just feel like the next one is,
right.
I don't know. And then with Van, it's building. With Van, like, I'm back to, I mean, I never stopped thinking. I think that the symbol on the postcard was a post-hypnotic trigger, And that's why this is
But who
all
sent it?
starting now. But who sent it? And I think who sent it, where originally I was like, oh, it's got to be Lottie or whatever, and Misty's working with her. So it's whoever is manipulating, like even Lottie in present day, right? By replacing her shrink with somebody that's going to like, oh no, I think you should listen to the visions, which is just like no shrink would fucking say that. Nobody.
Right.
But it's just too coincidental. Oh yeah, it was like a last minute, whatever it was. Like, oh, I think it was a last minute, leave of absence or bullshit. That dude's dead or locked up. They, of course, if they sent the cards and they started all of this, then they would start putting these people in place, knowing what, like, okay, Lottie's going to go to her shrink, blah 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 blah, like, or as a contingency in case she did. So it's somebody's pulling strings, and we don't know. It'd be really fucked up if Walter is part of whoever it is. That would be completely
Oh, I really hope
insane.
he's not.
That would be so nuts. Oh my god! Because right now, I just still think they're gonna fuck, and she's gonna end up having to kill him, and it's not gonna be a big deal to her. Because, and I still think Misty could be involved with whoever is the higher tier pulling the strings. But man,
Maybe she was complete, like she didn't know anything about the purple people or anything.
that's
And
true.
the
That's a
fact
good
that
point.
the fact I love that they go to a restaurant and he's like, you can't just ask, and she just asks the waitress,
Yeah.
do you ever see a bunch of purple people come in here? And she knew right who they were talking about.
Yep. Oh man. And you noticed that the theme song was different, right?
Oh yeah. I think I read somewhere that it was Alanis Morissette.
Who I'm not a fan of in
I
any
can't
way, shape, or
stand,
form.
but
I mean, it makes sense that they would.
I never liked her music.
No, I can't stand her. The only, no, not a fan. But it's interesting, and there were fresh images cut into the intro as well.
Those fresh images have been there since the first episode of season 2, but this is the first time the music has changed.
I think there might have been a couple. I could be totally wrong. I think there might have been a couple images that were not in it previously. Now you just watched you just watched 3 and 4 back to back, so I could be completely wrong. But as soon as I noticed the song,
and I
like,
always really focus on the images in the beginning. I'm always
so you're probably right then.
So I'll check again. I don't think the images, there are new images added, but
it's for the season.
They've been there since episode 1 of season 2.
Okay.
Season 1 had the whole beginning, and it's fucking subtle, because if you're staring at it, there are certain images that are always the mainstay of the credits.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they'll flash the pictures of teenage Shauna, Jackie doing that thing with her shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
There's a picture of all 4 of them together, and one of Nat. Like, those pictures were always there, and they're at the same points that they were before.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of new stuff.
New ones in between there. But I'm pretty sure that's been since episode 1 of season 2. But this was the first time the song changed. And I mean, that's cool. It's a, nod to the 90s or whatever. It made it more eerie. I didn't like how it sounded, but it did make it unnerving.
Well, they also added, there's like a high-pitched voice in the background, and I wondered if it was.
I thought that was her.
No, because once I saw her name, I know what her fucking voice sounds like, unfortunately. So I believe there's another thing in it, and I wondered at first if it was Lottie's dream sequence or whatever, which at first really bugged me, because I'm like, this doesn't add anything. And I stand by that. However, I ended up really liking it because it reminded me of Jackie's thing, where it's like, oh, come inside, we made you some food, and then you realize, oh, this is bullshit, she's fucking dying. And it was the same thing. Like, we're watching it, they're in the mall or whatever, and it's like, as she's sitting at the table, she's turning purple, and I was like, oh fuck, she's dying. This is just like Jackie's vision. But
Laura Lee pushed her out.
Right. But they do the theme song over that whole sequence where she's in the mall, but it's done like it's not
Music.
operatically. Well, the voices are like, it's almost opera. It's almost like I don't know what you would call it. Sounds like Medieval Babes or something, or like
okay.
And I wondered if that was what they just slipped beneath, like a more choral, I guess, a choir effect.
Yeah,
I wondered if that was what they slipped.
Maybe. I mean, I took it as like a Muzak version of it. Like when
dude, you got to be right, because the mall, of course.
Right, it didn't sound like opera to me. It just sounded like Muzak, like when you're waiting in line at the deli counter and you realize that that the Muzak is playing, Green Day When I Come Around or something like that, and it's like, God, I'm old. When did this become Muzak? But that's what that version of the song sounded like to me.
I think you're right, but then that begs the question, and I almost mentioned this last week, and I don't really think it's anything, but it's worth pointing out. As of episode 3 this season, they started using this editing technique primarily around Ben and his flashbacks, where you get a VHS kind of sizzle, and then it goes into something like a flashback or a dream sequence or whatever.
Yeah.
And we saw it a lot this episode with Ty at the beginning when she's in Jessica's apartment. And to me, that is almost breaking the fourth wall in a way. And then if you're using the theme song to a show, so if you have a show in the world of the show, the theme song wouldn't exist in the world of the show.
Right.
So the fact that they're using the theme song as something she would be hearing somewhat implies that the song exists in the world of the show. So is there a meta element? Now, I don't think there is. I think it was just they thought how cool would it be to do that? And it's a dream sequence anyway, so who fucking cares?
Right.
But it's worth pointing out that there are now 2 things that could potentially be meta. And I don't think it's going to go that way at all. But again, just worth pointing out.
I didn't I was aware of the VHS sizzle, but not really until you just called it out.
I mean, it's in the credits. It's always been in the opening, right? Always.
Well, yeah, it's always been in the opening, but
it's never been in the show.
It's never been in the show. The stuff with Ben was the first time, and now we're seeing it more. And what I also hadn't really thought about till my second time around, you had mentioned last episode with Ben that it was showing us kind of an alternate future, which I didn't catch that the first time. Like, I thought it was all memories, but then when I was just watching it today, you're totally right on, because we know that he didn't quit the team. He didn't go tell the coach or tell Ben he was going to move in with him, and he was on the plane.
Yeah.
That in the flashback you see on the news. So he has, some of his flashbacks are true and some are not. So some of the other things that they've shown us may not necessarily be true either.
That's a good point. I mean, I wondered if it's flashback this episode where he finds the photo album and then Paul is like, "Oh, don't you have one of these?" Right. I wondered if, like, is that a memory or is he still just daydreaming what could have been? Now I've moved in with him and I found this, but also it dawns on me, and again, I'm just pointing it out, but the whole meta thing where now you've got the theme song and the video editing technique from the credits encroaching into the actual show, and okay, worth pointing out, but also, what's the name of Van's fucking store?
Right, while you were streaming.
And what are we doing while we're watching it? We're fucking streaming it. So I mean, the meta thing is so played out, and it just, there's instances where it's so perfect that just, I always feel like, don't do it anymore. And then somebody comes along ultimately and does it in a way where it's like, okay, well, that was good. But most attempts to like one up that, like in horror movies, like Cabin in the Woods pretty much did that. Like, I feel like there was something since then where I was like, okay, that was clever. Maybe I think of like Final Girls, it's like, okay, you found a different way to do it, but other people have tried to do it, and now it's just like it's meta exhaustion. Just stop doing it. Don't do it anymore. So I'm pointing it out, but I'm hoping that it's not that. But if it is that, maybe it'll be fucking amazing. And I'll be like, well, fuck you, Sean, you were wrong. I don't know, but it is worth pointing out. And I think it's just a clever name for a store. Like as soon as I saw it, I was like, that's fucking awesome, right? Like a video store in the present day.
That is awesome. And I miss video stores. I would totally go there. But
hell yeah.
Like I didn't catch the name the first time until you called it out. I love that.
And just, yeah, we're streaming the show. So what's happening while we're streaming the show? I don't know.
I wonder if with the cracks and fizzles from the tapes, the VHS tapes fizzling into these memories or visions, are they telling us that what we're seeing is an illusion? Like that those ones aren't true, or those aren't the real ones?
Although they use it, well, they do use it with Ty seeing herself at the beginning of this. So technically, that could be an illusion to some degree if it's,
okay,
not that what we're seeing is an illusion, but what Ty's seeing is an illusion. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's so well written, and I just, again, from Friday night, episode ends, and I just turn to Kirsten. I go, nothing happened. What the fuck? And then here we are, and I'm like, dude, there's so much shit here.
There's so much stuff. Oh, and what you said about the red eyes, I looked, and I mean, I see it. I never noticed it before. I do see it, although I think she might have like very hazel eyes, and I think they're just picking up the camera.
That could be.
I think it's a lighting effect that just, I don't think it's intentional. I don't
think it is wrong. Either. The only thing that makes me think it's not intentional is nobody in her life comments on it.
Right.
So it's always there. So it just has to, I mean, I also thought she's very pale for a black woman. So I don't know, like if you are a Caucasian and you have albinoism or whatever the fuck it's called, some people have red eyes. So I don't know if there's like a variation for people of African descent where it makes your color paler and it affects the color of your eyes the same way. I have no idea. I mean, that's just a thought that popped into my head at some point this week, because it's so I can't unsee it since Kirsten pointed it out. And sometimes it's it's just so like, oh my God, that has to mean something. But again, it's like,
I don't think it's a supernatural presence or anything. I think she just has 20 colored eyes.
Yeah.
And she's picking up the light, the lighting or the camera.
Yeah.
I don't think that was intentional, but I could be totally wrong because so much is.
And that's why we love it. I don't want to be right.
Yeah, everything about this show is intentional.
Yep.
And before I forget, they're continuing on with the animal imagery. Because now, not only did we have the moose, but then we had new animals today. We had a fish and and the black girl. I don't remember her name.
Oh, Aquila, the mouse.
Aquila, the mouse. I'm sure those animals mean things, because I mean, when I have off the top of my head, I'm not sure what fish mean, but resiliency, maybe. I'm not sure. But every time we've seen a character encounter or have ties to an animal, those animals have significance. They've lined up when I've double checked totem books and whatnot.
The thing with the mouse, Aquila is Mari's only, like, they're close, right? Like she helps her look for the dripping, with the thing about the dripping again.
You always see them in the same scenes together. They're always together.
Aquila, and I don't think she's like 100% on board with Mari, but like I think it's one of those things like when everybody goes to help Nat and Mari's like, what the fuck? I thought, and they're like, yeah, we didn't want to starve, like duh. Aquila stays with her. I think she agrees with the group, but I think she's like, well, I don't want to leave her here by herself, whatever. So she's being a friend. I think Mari's going to eat that fucking mouse. And I think Aquila's going to be like, fuck you, you're on your own when the tables turn on her. Because
you think I didn't that's a very interesting thought, and it would be awesome if it plays out that way. I didn't even think of that with the bear meat. Like, they specifically call it out, and I'm like, and I was trying to think who I thought would take it, and I kind of came up empty.
Oh, dude, as soon as Sean is like, who did it? The first thing that happens is Mari goes, it's probably him, and points at it. She immediately blames somebody else, and then
to take the focus off her.
To take the focus off her, and then she totally starts the shit about Lottie with Nat. Like, she just diverts the whole conversation away from it. She's guilty. There's like, no, fuck her. Fuck her.
Yep, she's getting eaten now. They introduce, I guess these new girls, everybody keeps bringing up the new people. I think they were always there.
They were always there, for sure. I go back to that 19
I know
people.
I've seen them before.
There were 19 people when they walked to the lake in the first season, and whatever episode that was. So they just don't. It's the way they block their shots. We talked about it previously. So it's and like it's clear that they have to develop some of the other characters because it has to have some kind of impact when they fucking eat them or they die.
Right.
So we know
without
who lives.
them having to kill all their main characters.
Yeah.
We already know several of these people. We know their adult versions, so we know they survived.
Exactly. I still think there's other adult versions we haven't seen yet, like whether it's Aquila or whoever. Right. I think there's probably a handful, but
a couple more probably.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many, but Mari, I guess they're trying to make us hate her. So again, at least we'll cheer when she dies.
Yeah.
And Crystal kind of gets on my nerves. Like, she's nice enough, but I wouldn't mind seeing her get too.
Misty's gonna kill Crystal. It even dawned on me, like, oh, what a weird is like Walter, like Misty's brother, like come for revenge or something. No, that's preposterous. The show tunes. I just think Misty. It's the same reason I think she's gonna kill Walter. I think that there's just this thing in Misty where she can be like your friend, and then just be like, well, yeah, but I have to kill this person. It's a much more severe. It's not savagery like with Shauna or it's a pragmatism, but I also think she's a fucking psycho. So I just think, I don't think she's a psycho that kills people and buries their bodies under her house, but I think that it has absolutely no compunctions about killing somebody, even if she's friends with them. And I just feel like the relationship between Crystal and Misty is setting up something where she's going to kill her, and then that makes me think that she's going to get close to Walter and kill him. But I could be wrong about all of it.
Okay.
But then I was like, the show tunes, Crystal does show tunes. She's the one that gets Misty into show tunes. Is it possible that, like, in some weird way,
and now
Walter,
but that's show tunes, and
that's reaching beyond. But whatever. Again, it's fun to just throw shit at the wall and see what sticks, because it's like when you love a show like this, you want to talk about it. So
right, and it's full of weird shit.
Which, by the way, please, if you're listening to this on YouTube, or because it goes up on YouTube as well, I'd love to edit like a bunch of imagery, and it would no time. I would love to do it, but I just use a static image. But please leave comments if you're like, dude, you guys are fucking idiots. This is staring you right in the face, or this is the dumbest theory I've ever heard. Please,
right. Or you have
your
some
own
brilliant
theories.
theory.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, we like theories.
I'm doing this with Missy because we're friends and we like to talk about the stuff that we like, and we always have. But also, like, I would love it if everybody approaches this as like we're at a party and you're walking by to go get a drink and you hear us talking about Yellowjackets, and you come over and you're like, oh, dude, well, wait a minute, you guys talking about Yellowjackets. What about this? What about that?
Right. So,
please,
point out stuff we haven't seen. We love finding that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Like, find us on. I guess you can comment on. I don't know if you can comment on like Spotify or Apple podcasts.
I don't know.
If not,
I mean, I
Find it on
know you put
YouTube.
them sometimes on Instagram. You can comment on those, but
I
there's the
yeah,
Facebook page,
yeah,
the
Facebook
Horror
page.
Vision Facebook group.
Yeah, find it. Oh shit, there's a
Talk to
fucking
us,
Horror
Will.
Vision website. So, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything we didn't talk about that you wanted to bring up?
No, just I implore people to, if it felt slow, watch it again.
Watch it again and tell your friends that if they're getting fed up, just be like, dude, seriously, hang
It's
with it.
there.
Something's coming.
Right. I guarantee this is planned out. They're not gonna, they're not full of shit. They have this written. I'm sure they do.
Yeah,
They're
sure
going somewhere big with it, and they're just getting there so that when it does go savage, it's like it's gonna hit us.
Yeah, it's gonna
So
hit
just
us.
watch it again.
And on that note, we'll be back next week after episode 5. So for the Horror Vision Presents Sharing in Session, I'm Sean.
And I'm Missy.
And we're sending you the Rainbow of Argentina.